I wasn't even finished washing the dishes when my bank app nearly gave me a heart attack. I'd come to dinner for Richard's birthday. Homemade chili, garlic bread, a slightly burned pecan pie, and now, apparently $12,000 missing. The sounds of clinking silverware and laughter carried over from the living room where the rest of the family had gathered around the TV. I could still hear Ethan's exaggerated sports commentary, Sophia's high-pitched giggle, and Lily's squeals over a new iPad. I assumed it was a hand-me-down. Apparently, I was wrong. I dried my hands on the dish towel slung over my shoulder, pressed the Face ID on my phone again, and stared at the numbers. $11,987 gone. The transactions were recent, spread out over the last 6 weeks. Autopay, Ethan Thompson Venmo, transfer, LA Rent Depot, recurring. My stomach dropped. I scrolled faster then slower, trying to make sense of the trail. No way. I had just reviewed this account last month. Everything was accounted for. My emergency fund, my travel savings, the deposit for that quiet retreat in Arizona I'd never taken. I backed out of the app and looked around the kitchen. The smell of chili still hung in the air. The counter was cluttered with disposable cups, a half-full salad bowl, Lily's tiny light-up shoes kicked off by the pantry. A framed family photo sat above the microwave, me and Sophia as kids, holding hands in matching fleece pajamas, grinning. I couldn't remember the last time we'd laughed like that. When I arrived 2 hours earlier, I came with a bottle of wine in one hand and a homemade apple tart in the other. Sophia greeted me with a quick air kiss already mid-scroll on her phone. Lily ran to hug me, shouting, "Auntie Aurora, you're rich now!" as if it were just my new name. Susan, my mom, fluttered around the kitchen in a soft pink sweater, stirring the chili like she hadn't noticed the tension. Richard sat on the back deck, sipping beer and poking at the fire pit with a stick. Dinner was fine. The same questions. How's work? Still single? Still in Los Angeles? They praised my freedom, my nice job, my cozy little apartment. But beneath the compliments was something else. Must be nice, someone mumbled. No diapers or rent or student loans to worry about. Laughed politely, the way I always did. But now I was staring at numbers I didn't authorize, transfers I didn't make, names that weren't mine. I walked back into the dining area, phone still in my hand. Sophia was sipping wine, legs curled up on the couch. Her nails were freshly done, neutral gel with tiny rhinestones. Ethan was leaning against the fridge with a beer in one hand and a smirk on his face. "Hey," I said, holding up my phone. "Did anyone use my banking app?" Sophia looked up, surprised but not concerned. "What do you mean?" "There are transfers I didn't make. A lot of money is gone." Ethan took a sip of his beer. "Define a lot." "Almost $12,000. Sophia blinked. "Wow, that much." I turned the screen to show them. "Look, these were from the last 6 weeks. I didn't approve of any of this." Ethan shrugged, leaning casually against the fridge door. "Relax, we just borrowed it, Aurora. You've got more than enough." I stared at him. "We?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Come on, Aurora. It's not like it's all gone. Some of it went to Lily's school supplies and rent was tight this month. You never asked." "We didn't think we had to," Ethan said with a laugh. "You always help anyway." Susan stepped in from the hallway, wiping her hands on a towel. "What's going on?" I turned to her. "Did you know about this?" She paused. "Well, Sophia said she needed a little help, and I figured you wouldn't mind." Richard didn't look up from the TV. I felt like I was floating, like the ground had just quietly disappeared beneath me. I wasn't just mad about the money. I was devastated by the ease, the assumption, the utter casualness of it all. My emergency fund wasn't just cash. It was protection. Years of skipped vacations, side jobs, budget dinners. It was every night I said no to going out. Every time I told myself, later, Aurora. Later when it's safe. And now it was a joke in my own house. I scanned the room again. The iPad in Lily's hands, Sophia's brand new boots by the door, Ethan's car keys. He'd upgraded. I noticed a newer model, sleek silver. I swallowed the burn rising in my throat. "This is theft," Sophia frowned. "Aurora, don't be dramatic." "We're family," family asks. Family respects boundaries. Family helps. No, I said more quietly than I expected. They don't help themselves to $12,000 behind your back. Ethan rolled his eyes. You live alone, no mortgage, no kids. Don't act like this is some kind of crisis. I stood there staring at them. My mouth was dry. Not one person in that house looked sorry. This wasn't a one-time slip. It was just the first time they didn't hide it. Outside my apartment window, snow drifted in lazy spirals, settling on the fire escape like the city was trying to quiet itself. Inside, the only sound was the low hum of the heater and the occasional clink of my spoon against a half-eaten bowl of lentil soup. My living room was neat, minimal, a gray couch, a single plant, shelves lined with records I never had time to play. On the coffee table, my laptop, a stack of printed bank statements, and a folder I'd labeled in black Sharpie, unauthorized. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but there it was, line after line. Rent transfer, $1,850 car repair, $600 utility relief, $312 recurring payments to accounts I didn't recognize. Yet the names felt eerily familiar in the fine print. S. Cooper, E. Thompson. I picked up my phone and opened the gallery of texts from the past 3 years. So many messages that started with, "Hey, quick favor," or "I promise it's just this once." Sophia called crying at 11 p.m. Lily had just turned 1. They were 3 weeks behind on rent. Please, Aurora, I don't know who else to ask. I wired $1,500 that night. No strings attached, no questions asked, no thank you. I never brought it up again. There was the time Ethan's car died, and I canceled a work retreat in San Diego to cover repairs. Another time, Mom's phone got cut off. She texted, "Bill, surprise, can you cover it till Friday?" I did. She never followed up. I picked up one of the birthday cards still sitting unopened on the shelf. Sophia's from last year. Inside, a pre-printed happy birthday and a signature. No message, no effort. I took a sip of my now cold soup, placed the bowl aside, and dialed Mom. "Hi, sweetheart," she answered, too cheerful, like she'd been expecting good news. "Hey," I said flatly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you know Sophia and Ethan were pulling from my account?" Silence. I thought you gave them access. Sophia said you were fine with it." "She said that?" "Yes," she said carefully. "And I figured, well, you always help, you're doing well, and that's not the same as saying yes." Susan sighed. "Aurora, you've always been the strong one. You live alone. No one depending on you. I just didn't think you'd be upset." "I'm not upset," I said quietly. "I'm done." There was a pause. "You don't mean that, but I did." After hanging up, I opened my laptop again and began building the spreadsheet. I cross-referenced every transfer, every note. I color-coded the recurring ones, flagged those linked to Sophia's address. Over 3 years, I'd made 47 separate payments, 0 repayments. I remembered Christmas 2 years ago. I bought Lily a STEM building kit, something she'd mentioned in passing. She squealed when she opened it. Sophia frowned. "Couldn't you get her something cuter?" I remembered Lily tugging at my sweater one night and whispering, "Mom says you can buy anything." I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold, organized, ready. The money was just a symptom. The disease was how easily they convinced themselves I'd say nothing. The office smelled faintly of lemon oil and paper. It was clean, almost too clean. A long wood table sat in the center of the room, surrounded by soft leather chairs. Along the wall, sunlight pushed through frosted glass panels, casting geometric shadows across the floor. I sat at one end, hands folded in my lap, a charcoal gray folder resting on the table in front of me. I'd dressed carefully that morning, dark slacks, a pressed blouse, no earrings, no perfume. I wanted to look like someone who meant business. Not a daughter, not a sister, a client. Across from me sat Laura Bennett, late 40s, sharp bob, black blazer, no small talk. I liked her already. She flipped open the folder I'd brought and began to scan the contents. She didn't speak, just nodded once in a while, her pen making crisp check marks in the margins. Bank statements, email printouts, screenshots of text messages. A spreadsheet with 3 years of unauthorized transfers coded by recipient, date, and category. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was surgical. After a few minutes, Laura closed the folder and looked up. "You've built a case," she said. I exhaled. I hadn't even realized I was holding my breath. She tapped the folder lightly. "You kept every receipt." Almost obsessively, I said. "They used to call me paranoid." Her mouth curved slightly, not a smile, just recognition. "I've seen worse," she said, "but this is thorough." "Very thorough." I nodded. I wasn't angry at first, just confused, then disappointed, then tired. Then I got organized. Laura leaned back. "Do you want to warn them or pursue legal action?" I hesitated, she added. "Either option has consequences. Warning gives them time to spin a story. Litigation gets messy, but it makes a statement." "They're my family," I said slowly. "But they act like I'm a service provider." She said nothing. Just let the words hang there. I looked out the window. Across the street, a barista was wiping down an outdoor table, brushing away early spring pollen. Everything outside this room felt too normal for the kind of betrayal I was sitting with. Last year, Lily had a school fundraiser. I donated $300 and bought 4 boxes of cookies. A week later, a coworker told me Sophia had called me guilty rich. I hadn't known what that meant then. I did now. "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "But I do want it to stop, and I want them to know it wasn't okay." Laura folded her hands. "Do you want closure or justice?" I met her eyes. "Both," I said. "But I'll settle for justice." She nodded, opened a fresh file on her laptop, and began typing. As she worked, my phone buzzed silently in my pocket. I didn't need to check it. The last few days had been a flood of messages. Sophia sending memes, Ethan sending question marks, my mother leaving voicemails that began with "sweetheart" and ended with "don't make this a thing." I had stopped replying. I wasn't interested in explanations anymore. I wasn't looking for remorse. I was done educating people who didn't want to learn. Laura finished typing and turned the screen toward me. "This is the initial complaint. Once we file, the bank will be compelled to release additional records and will move into formal mediation or escalation." I read over the document. My name at the top, their names beneath mine. I felt like I was staring at a police report for a crime that had no fingerprints, just assumptions. Laura closed the laptop. "One last thing," she said. "Once we knock, there's no going back." I looked at her steady, then knock hard. They thought I'd just get it out of my system, cry a little, text a dramatic paragraph, go quiet for a few weeks, then show up again with wine and something homemade. So, when I invited them for dinner, they said yes without hesitation. I brought no wine, and the only thing I'd cooked was the truth. The backyard looked almost exactly like it had last fall. String lights glowing overhead, porch fans spinning lazily in the summer air, plates of grilled chicken and potato salad laid out. On the table like this was just another Sunday evening. Sophia wore a flowy sundress, pretending she wasn't annoyed. Ethan had already cracked open a beer and sprawled across 2 patio chairs like we were tailgating. Susan bustled between the kitchen and the yard, bringing out lemonade, napkins, and anything that could distract her from eye contact. Richard stayed, seated with a paper plate and a faintly confused expression, like he couldn't remember if this was a birthday or a barbecue. I sat across from them, hands folded in my lap. As a teenager, I once told my mom, half joking, "If I ever disappear, I hope someone knocks first." Now, I was the one doing the knocking. Ethan tipped his drink in my direction. "So, what's the big occasion, eh? Don't tell me you're getting married. We'll all faint." Sophia gave a brittle laugh. "Or moving to Europe to escape us." Susan forced a smile. "Whatever it is, honey, we're just glad you're here." I stood up and walked inside, returning a moment later with my laptop and a stack of folders. I set one in front of each of them. "What's this?" Richard asked, squinting. I didn't answer right away. I plugged my laptop into the HDMI cable leading to the mounted TV above the fireplace. The screen lit up, a neatly organized spreadsheet, color-coded and cross-referenced. The silence was instant. "Over the past 3 years," I began, "I've transferred $47,000 to this family. Most of it without being asked, none of it ever repaid." These folders contain printouts, bank statements, text messages, emails, and a summary of transactions pulled directly from my account. Sophia laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "What is this, Aurora? Some kind of joke?" Susan picked up the folder. Her hands trembled slightly. "You didn't have to do this. No one else thought anything was far," I replied. Ethan leaned forward, the smirk flickering. "You went to a lawyer?" "Yes," I said, "in the California Financial Investigation Bureau." Richard's cup rattled against the table. Sophia's fork slipped off her plate with a clink. Susan blinked rapidly as if trying to wake herself. "Up from something? You invited us here just to what? Accuse us of being criminals?" Sophia snapped. "No," I said calmly. "I invited you here to watch me stop pretending." Then, knock knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. No one moved. I stood and walked to open it. On the porch stood 3 agents in dark blazers. The lead officer held a manila envelope in one hand and a tablet in the other. Their jackets bore the emblem of the California Financial Investigation Bureau. "Ms. Aurora Monroe." "Yes," I said. "I'm the complainant." He nodded. "We're here with legal warrants to begin preliminary questioning and documentation retrieval." "Is Ethan Thompson present?" Ethan stood face blanching. "This is insane." "Sophia Cooper?" the agent continued. Sophia frozen. I didn't." "She," whispered. The second agent stepped forward. "Please remain seated. This is a non-criminal administrative inquiry at this stage, but refusal to cooperate can escalate the matter." Susan clutched her napkin. "You didn't need to do this, Aurora. We're family." I looked at her, voice low but steady. "Then maybe you should have acted like it." Richard finally spoke barely above a whisper. "We thought you'd be okay." I turned back to the agents. "You can begin." The lead investigator nodded and the room shifted. What had started as a backyard dinner became something else entirely. A formal record, a reckoning. My mother finally looked me in the eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't know what to say. I didn't go back to my apartment after the investigation. I went home to the one place that never asked anything of me. Willow Creek was quieter than I remembered. The road into town curved past dry fields and hills dotted with rusted mailboxes and hand-painted signs. Eleanor's cottage stood just where it always had, at the edge of the woods, tucked behind a crooked white fence and a garden that refused to behave. I parked beneath the old maple tree and stared at the front porch. The wind chimes were still there, still tangled, still slightly off-key. The key she gave me all those years ago fit without resistance. The lock clicked. The door opened. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and something faintly sweet, like dried orange peel and soap that had long stopped being used. The wood-paneled walls were the same honey tone. The curtains were floral, sun-faded. A teacup still sat on the kitchen counter, dust pooling at the bottom. No one had touched this place since she passed. I didn't cry. I set my bag down and began to clean quietly, methodically. First the kitchen, then the bedroom, then the porch. I opened windows to let in the summer air, then scrubbed the sink until it shone. In the hallway, I found a small cardboard box labeled in Grandma Eleanor's handwriting for Aurora when she's ready. Inside, photos, letters, one unopened, folded in thirds. I sat on the bed and opened it. "If they ever forget who you are, this house will remember. Love, Grandma E." That night, I made soup from scratch. Carrot, potato, garlic. I ate it on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders. No music, no emails, no questions, just air. The next morning, I stepped outside barefoot and walked to the edge of the lavender garden. The purple blooms were tangled and wild, buzzing with bees. I crouched down, ran my fingers gently across the petals, and breathed in. Lavender doesn't ask. It just grows. A knock on the porch startled me. I turned to see a woman holding a basket of tomatoes. "Mary," she said, smiling. "Used to be neighbors with Eleanor." She handed me the basket without waiting to be invited in. "She talked about you all the time, said you were the only one who never expected anything but love." I swallowed hard. "She defended you, you know," Mary added, "even when the others didn't understand." Said Aurora's got boundaries and boundaries aren't walls. We sat on the porch steps for a while, not saying much, just the sound of birds in the trees and the creak of the swing. When she left, I walked inside and pulled out my phone. I removed the SIM card, slid it into a drawer, and replaced it with a new one. Only 3 numbers went into the contact list. My lawyer, my coworker, Sarah, and Mia, my college friend who once said, "You don't need to carry other people's expectations, you're not a suitcase." I opened my laptop and typed one last message. To Susan, Sophia, Ethan, do not contact me. Legal process will speak for itself. Aurora, no explanations, no more open doors. I stepped outside again, barefoot in the grass, and stood at the edge of the lavender. The breeze shifted, lifting the scent around me. The sun was warm on my shoulders, and for the first time in months, maybe years, my shoulders dropped. The wind carried no voices, no guilt, no debts, just space. Finally, space. They called, they wrote, they begged. None of them ever said, "I'm sorry." Sophia sent a long email with phrases like, "Emotional misunderstanding and family should never turn legal." Ethan texted, "We didn't know you'd take it this far." Mom sent a handwritten letter with no return address. 10 pages, all pain, no apology. "You destroyed the family over a bit of money." I read the first line, then fed it into the shredder. It's been almost a year since the knock on the door, since that evening when the truth stopped being mine alone and became official. I moved out of Los Angeles 2 months later, found a new apartment in Phoenix, small, bright, mine. The walls are painted soft gray. There's a balcony with space for plants, a kitchen I actually use. In March, I started a new job at a small cybersecurity firm. They work exclusively with clients who've experienced data abuse, nonprofits, survivors, whistleblowers. During the final interview, the CEO asked, "What made you apply here?" I said, "I understand what it means to be violated quietly." She didn't ask me to elaborate. She just nodded and said, "Welcome to the team. My days now are simple. I walk to work. I buy groceries without checking anyone else's list. I cook for one. I journal 1 line a day. I read books I never finished before. I don't check missed calls. My phone is quiet because I let it be." One afternoon in April, Laura Bennett emailed me the final case update. Settlement complete. Financial block confirmed. No further contact required unless initiated by you. She didn't add, "Congratulations." She didn't need to. The quiet said enough. A few nights later, I passed a girl in the grocery store who reminded me of Lily. Same wide eyes, same messy ponytail. I remembered Lily once whispering, "I want to be just like you." For a moment, I smiled, then paused. Would I want her to be? I hope not. Not the version I was, not the woman who equated giving with worthiness, but maybe this version, the one who cooks without guilt, who walks without looking at her phone, the one who finally understands boundaries aren't selfish. They're sacred. At a team lunch in May, someone asked me what I'd tell someone going through betrayal. I thought for a moment, then said, "Sometimes healing starts with the lock clicking behind you." They all nodded. No one asked me to explain. Maybe they understood. That evening, I got home, fed the cat I'd recently adopted, her name is Violet, and poured a glass of wine. The sky outside glowed faintly orange. I pulled up Grandma Eleanor's old playlist on my speaker, the one with jazz and soft gospel and a recording of her laugh tucked at the end. I didn't cry when it played, I just let it fill the space. I turned off my phone, turned on the music Grandma once loved, and for the first time in a decade I danced alone, but not lonely. I didn't leave angry. I left because no one noticed how quiet I had become. Sometimes the real turning point in life isn't loud. It's the quiet moment when you stop explaining yourself and start protecting your peace. Family should never be the reason you lose yourself. Love, when it's real, doesn't ask you to disappear just to keep the room warm. Even in the hardest chapters, dignity isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when to let go. And sometimes letting go is how we finally come home to ourselves. If this story felt familiar, if it echoed something deep inside you, feel free to share your thoughts. I'd love to know, what did family mean to you, and when did that meaning change?
The Riverside Grand Estate had always been my sister Victoria's dream venue. Ever since we were kids, she'd torn pictures from bridal magazines, circling this exact location with red marker. "This is where successful people get married," she'd tell me, 11 years old and already mastering our mother's particular brand of cruelty. I was 29 now, standing in the marble foyer of that very estate, watching Victoria glide across the imported Italian tile like she owned the place. He didn't, of course. But neither did she know who actually did. "Can you believe they're giving me the entire grounds for my wedding?" Victoria announced to our assembled family, Mom, Dad, our Aunt Patricia, and our 2 cousins James and Rebecca. The gardens, the ballroom, even the vintage wine cellar for the reception. "It's going to be absolutely perfect. Because you deserve perfection, sweetheart," Mom cooed, adjusting Victoria's engagement ring so it caught the chandelier light. "You've worked so hard to get where you are." Victoria worked as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. It was a good job. Respectable. The kind of career our parents could brag about at their country club. The kind that came with a salary that could almost afford a venue like the Riverside Grand Estate. Almost. I knew because I'd reviewed the venue's pricing structure just last week during my quarterly financial review. The full estate rental ran $45,000 for a weekend, plus catering minimums, plus the dozen other fees that made weddings at prestigious venues so memorably expensive. "And where are you thinking of having your wedding, Emma?" Aunt Patricia asked me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Whenever you finally find someone, of course." "I'm not engaged," I said simply. "Still." Victoria's laugh was crystalline, practiced. "You're almost 30. Most women your age are already married with kids." "Different timelines for different people," I replied. "Different expectations too," Dad added, not looking up from his phone. "Some people aim for elegance. Others are more practical." I'd heard variations of this speech my entire life. Victoria was the golden child. Beautiful, charming, ambitious in ways our parents understood. I was the practical one. The quiet one. The one who'd chosen to work at a little property management company, instead of pursuing something impressive. That's what they thought anyway. "The catering alone is going to be $18,000, Victoria continued, scrolling through her phone. "But James said he'd help with some of the costs, didn't you, James?" Our cousin nodded uncomfortably. James ran a moderately successful real estate firm. He was always the family member people turned to when they needed money, which meant he was always writing checks to maintain his position as the generous one. "Of course," James said. "Family helps family." "Some family," Victoria amended, her eyes sliding to me. "The family members who actually contribute something." I kept my expression neutral. I'd learned years ago that reacting only fed into their narrative. Better to stay quiet, stay calm, let them underestimate me. It had served me well so far. "Emma, maybe you could help with the wedding favors," Mom suggested. "You know, something simple. Within your budget." "I can do that," I agreed. "Perfect." Victoria clapped her hands together. "I was thinking custom French soaps from that boutique in the city. They're only $40 each and I need about $8,000 for soap." "That might be outside my range," I said carefully. "Of course it is," Victoria sighed dramatically. "That's fine. I should have known better than to ask. You probably shop at discount stores, don't you?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "How sad," Aunt Patricia murmured. The venue coordinator approached our group then, a young woman named Sarah with an iPad and an efficient smile. I recognized her immediately. She'd been working at the estate for 3 years, ever since I'd acquired the property as part of a larger real estate portfolio. "Miss Blackwood," Sarah addressed Victoria. "I wanted to confirm a few details about your event." "Of course." Victoria's voice took on the sugary tone she used with service workers. "I want everything to be absolutely perfect." "Naturally. Now, regarding the ceremony location, you've selected the Rose Garden, correct?" "Yes, with the white arbor." "Is that still available?" "It is, though I should mention we have another wedding the day before yours, so setup will need to happen early Saturday morning." Victoria's smile tightened. "How early?" "Probably around 6 a.m. We'll be as quiet as possible, but there might be some noise." "That's unacceptable. I'm paying a premium for this venue. I expect better service." I watched Sarah's professional mask slip for just a moment. She didn't know Victoria could be like this. demanding, entitled, treating anyone in a service position like they were inferior. I understand your concern, Ms. Blackwood. Let me see what we can do. Don't see what you can do, Victoria interrupted. Just make it happen. That's literally your job. Victoria, I said quietly. She's trying to help. My sister whirled on me. Oh please. When have you ever managed anything more complicated than cleaning an apartment? This is a real event, Emma. And the kind of place someone like you could never afford. Never afford? I repeated softly. Don't even think about booking here, Victoria continued, her voice rising. Not for your wedding, not for any event. This venue is for successful people. People who've actually accomplished something with their lives. Mom stepped forward, placing a hand on Victoria's arm, not to restrain her but to show solidarity. Know your place, dear, Mom said to me, her voice gentle but cutting. There's nothing wrong with having a smaller wedding at a more appropriate venue when your time comes. I nodded quietly. The silence that followed felt heavy with satisfaction. Their satisfaction at putting me in my place, at maintaining the family hierarchy that had existed since childhood. Then Sarah cleared her throat. Excuse me, Miss Blackwood, she said to Victoria. Before we continue, I need to address something with. She turned to me. Ma'am, where should we put your sister's security deposit? Victoria blinked. What? The deposit, Sarah repeated, looking at me. Standard procedure is to check with ownership before processing family member bookings. I'm sorry, Victoria said slowly. What are you talking about? Sarah's eyes widened slightly, and I could see her realizing she just revealed something I'd kept deliberately quiet. I apologize, I assumed you knew. Your sister owns the Riverside Grand Estate. She has for the past 3 years. The marble foyer, with all its imported elegance and crystal chandeliers, went completely silent. That's ridiculous, Victoria said finally. Emma works at a property management company. She barely makes enough to. I don't work at a property management company, I said quietly. I own one. Sterling Property Group. We manage 43 luxury properties across the state. This is one of them. Dad's phone clattered to the floor. You're lying, Victoria breathed. The deed is public record, I replied. I purchased the estate in 2021 for $2.3 million. The property value has since appreciated to approximately $3.1 million. Sarah nodded, pulling up information on her iPad. Ms. Emma Blackwood, sole proprietor of Sterling Property Group LLC. Primary owner of. Stop, Mom whispered. Just stop. But Sarah was scrolling now, her professional mask firmly back in place. The Riverside Grand Estate, the Harborview Event Center, the Metropolitan Hotel downtown, the Oakwood Country Club. The Oakwood. Aunt Patricia gasped. That's where we have our membership. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Blackwood acquired it last year. Beautiful property. I watched my family process this information, their faces cycling through disbelief, confusion, and finally the dawning horror of understanding. The country club, Dad said faintly. You own our country club. I own several clubs, I corrected gently. The Oakwood is just one property in the portfolio. Victoria's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. So when I booked this venue, you submitted a booking request like any client. Sarah and her team processed it normally. I saw your name on the calendar but didn't interfere. You seemed excited about the venue. You let me book my own wedding at your property without telling me? You seem to prefer thinking I was unsuccessful, I said. I didn't see any reason to correct you. How? Mom demanded. How could you possibly afford? Where did you get the money? I started the company 7 years ago with a small commercial property I bought using money I'd saved. I renovated it, rented it out, used the profits to buy another property. Then another. I built it carefully, reinvesting profits, taking calculated risks. 7 years, Rebecca murmured. You've been doing this for 7 years and never said anything? Why would I? I asked simply. Every family gathering, every holiday, I heard about how I was the practical one, the simple one, the one without ambition. It seemed easier to let you believe that than to argue. James had pulled out his own phone, searching frantically. Sterling Property Group, he read aloud. Privately held real estate investment and management company. Portfolio value estimated at. Holy shit, Emma. Language, Mom said automatically. Then, how much? The portfolio is currently valued at approximately $47 million, I said. Give or take, depending on market fluctuations. Victoria sat down heavily on one of the venue's antique chairs. $47 million? It's not all liquid assets. Most of that is property value. The actual operating capital is smaller. How much smaller? Dad asked hoarsely. The company maintains liquid reserves of about $8 million for operations and opportunities. Sarah cleared her throat delicately. Ma'am, about the deposit. Process it normally, I told her. Standard family discount though, 20% off the venue fee. No, Victoria said suddenly. No, I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's our standard family member rate. We have it listed in the booking policies. You have a family rate? Mom asked faintly. Of course. Several of our properties have hosted events for employees' families. It seemed only fair to extend the same courtesy to my own family. The words hung in the air, the implications settling like dust. You would have given me a discount, Victoria said slowly. If we just treated me with basic respect? I finished gently. Probably. Though to be fair, you never asked. You just assumed I couldn't afford to be here. Aunt Patricia had been silent, but now she spoke up, her voice sharp with sudden panic. The Oakwood Country Club. Our membership dues are coming up next month. They are, I confirmed. And you own it. I do. So you could just cancel our membership? I tilted my head, considering. I could. The club has a fairly standard contract though. I'd need cause, violation of club rules, harassment of staff, that sort of thing. The implication was clear. My family had spent years treating service workers, people they considered beneath them, with casual cruelty. And now one of those service workers' family members owned their playground. Emma, Dad started, his voice taking on a placating tone I'd never heard before. Sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Has there? I asked mildly. We never meant to suggest you weren't successful. We're proud of you, of course we are. We just didn't realize that I was rich? I supplied. That changes things, doesn't it? That's not fair, Mom protested. Isn't it? 5 minutes ago Victoria told me not to even think about booking here because I'm not successful enough. Now that you know I own it, suddenly you want to talk about misunderstandings and pride. Sarah was trying very hard to look invisible, her attention fixed firmly on her iPad. I felt bad for putting her in this position, but there was no graceful way to exit the conversation now. The wedding, Victoria said suddenly. I can't have my wedding at your venue. It would be too weird. Why? I asked. It's a beautiful property. You've been dreaming about it since we were kids. The fact that I own it doesn't change the rose garden or the ballroom or the vintage wine cellar. But everyone would know. Everyone would know that my little sister owns the venue, that I needed her property for my perfect wedding. Only if you tell them, I pointed out. I certainly wasn't planning to advertise it. Victoria's hands were shaking slightly. How long have you been sitting on this? How long have you been letting us think you were nobody? I'm not nobody, I said quietly. I never was. I just wasn't what you wanted me to be. My phone buzzed then. A text from Marcus Chin, my business partner and the company's CFO. Deal closed on the Westbrook property. Congratulations, you're now the owner of a $12 million historic inn. I glanced at the message and slipped the phone back into my pocket. I need to go, I said. Sarah, process everything normally for Victoria's wedding. Full family discount, standard payment schedule. Wait, Dad said. Emma, we should talk about this. Should we? Because we've had 29 years to talk, and this is the first time you've seemed interested in what I actually do. That's not true. Dad, 3 Christmases ago you asked me if I still worked at that little management place. Last Thanksgiving, Mom suggested I apply to be Victoria's secretary because at least then I'd be near success. And 2 weeks ago when I mentioned buying a new car, Aunt Patricia laughed and asked if I meant a used Honda. Aunt Patricia had the grace to look embarrassed. I bought a Tesla, I continued. Paid cash. But I didn't correct her because I've learned there's no point. You all decided who I was supposed to be and nothing I said was going to change that. So you just let us think you were poor? Victoria demanded. For years. I let you underestimate me, I corrected. There's a difference. Sarah's iPad chimed. He glanced at it, then at me, then at Victoria. Miss Blackwood, the younger Miss Blackwood, I'm going to step away and give you some privacy. But I'll need your signature on the deposit agreement before you leave today. Which Blackwood? Victoria asked bitterly. You, Sarah clarified. Though technically both of you will need to sign, you as the client, and Miss Emma as the property owner approving family discount rates. She disappeared into the back office, leaving us in the foyer with its soaring ceilings and uncomfortable truths. I can't believe this, Mom said finally. All this time you've been, she gestured vaguely at the opulent surroundings. This, and you never said anything. Would you have believed me? I asked. If I'd told you 3 years ago that I owned this place, would you have believed me, or would you have assumed I was lying to make myself feel important? The silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said softly. James had been scrolling through his phone and now he looked up, his expression strange. Emma, it says here that Sterling Property Group just acquired the Westbrook Inn. That property's been on the market for 2 years. Everyone in real estate has been trying to get it. We closed this morning, I confirmed. That's a $12 million property. $11.8 million actually. We negotiated. Rebecca laughed suddenly, a slightly hysterical sound. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Our little cousin Emma, who we've been treating like trash. I supplied. Yeah, I noticed. I was going to say like a child, but sure, let's go with trash. Victoria stood abruptly. I need to think. This is my wedding. This is supposed to be my special day, and now it's going to be overshadowed by the fact that my sister secretly owns. She gestured around wildly. All of this. It doesn't have to be, I said. I told you I wasn't planning to advertise it. You can have your perfect wedding at your dream venue. The only difference is now you know who signs the checks. That's a pretty big difference, Emma. Is it? Or is it only different because you spent the last hour telling me I could never afford to be here? Victoria's face crumpled slightly. I didn't mean. You did mean it. You've always meant it. All of you have. I looked around at my family, at their shocked faces, their uncomfortable shifting. You decided I was less than Victoria, less than James, less than whoever met your arbitrary standards of success. And I let you believe it because it was easier than fighting you every single day. So this is revenge? Dad asked. You built a real estate empire just to prove us wrong? No, I said. I built a real estate empire because I'm good at it. Because I enjoy it. Because I wanted to create something meaningful. You all were just background noise. That seemed to hurt more than anything else I'd said. They wanted to be important to my success story, either as inspiration or obstacle. The idea that they were irrelevant was harder to process than the idea that they'd been wrong. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, media outlets are asking about the Westbrook acquisition. How do you want to handle it? I typed back, standard press release. Low key. Are you texting about business right now? Mom asked incredulously. The company doesn't stop because I'm at a family meeting, I replied. A family meeting where you just revealed you've been lying to us for years. I never lied, I interrupted. I just didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference. Sarah emerged from the back office then, tactfully pretending the last 10 minutes hadn't happened. Miss Victoria, I have the contracts ready when you are. And Miss Emma, I'll need you to sign off on the family rate authorization. Of course. We followed her to the venue's office, a smaller, more intimate space with views of the rose garden where Victoria wanted her ceremony. The same rose garden she told me I could never afford to even dream about. Sarah pulled up the contracts on her computer. Standard venue rental, catering through our preferred vendor list, full use of grounds from Friday evening through Sunday morning. With the 20% family discount, the total comes to $36,000. Victoria winced at the number. We can set up a payment plan if needed, Sarah offered. Many clients prefer to split it across several months. I can pay it, Victoria said quickly. Then quieter, I can afford it. I know you can, I said. You're a regional sales manager. You make good money. You've been saving for this wedding for 2 years. You can absolutely afford it. She looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something shift in her expression. You knew how much I'd been saving? You mentioned it last Christmas. $42,000 set aside for the wedding. You remembered that? I remember most things, I said. You're my sister. Of course I pay attention. Victoria's eyes were suddenly bright with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. Emma, I'm so sorry. I've been so cruel and you were just letting me plan my dream wedding even though you told me I'd never be good enough to have one here? I finished. Yeah. Why? She asked. Why would you still give me the family discount after everything I said? Because you're family, I said simply. And because this venue really is perfect for you. I bought it partly because I knew you'd always loved it. I thought maybe someday you'd want to have your wedding here and I could give you that. The tears spilled over then. I don't deserve that. Probably not, I agreed. But I'm giving it to you anyway. Sarah was tactfully focused on her computer screen, but I could see the slight smile on her face. Sign the contracts, I told Victoria. Have your perfect wedding. Post all the pictures you want. Just, maybe in the future remember that people are more than what they appear to be. Victoria nodded, wiping her eyes, and reached for the pen Sarah offered. The contracts took 20 minutes to finalize. Standard terms, standard deposit schedule, everything processed exactly as it would be for any client, except for the 20% discount that saved Victoria $9,000. When we emerged from the office, the rest of the family was still in the foyer, looking shell-shocked. It's done, Victoria announced. I'm having my wedding here. Are you sure that's wise? Aunt Patricia asked carefully. It's my dream venue, Victoria said. And my sister owns it. That's actually kind of perfect. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Emma, Dad started. We owe you an apology. Several apologies, I corrected. But yes. We've treated you badly. We made assumptions. You made me feel worthless, I said quietly. For years, you made me feel like nothing I did mattered because I wasn't doing it your way. Do you know what that's like? To build something you're proud of and have your own family dismiss it because they can't see past their own prejudices. We didn't know, Mom began. You didn't ask, I interrupted. That's the problem. You never asked what I was doing or how it was going. You just assumed and then you judged me based on those assumptions. James spoke up then. For what it's worth, I think it's incredible what you've built. $47 million in 7 years? That's genuinely impressive, Emma. Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't see it before. I should have paid more attention. You all should have, I agreed. But you didn't and now we're here. So what happens now? Rebecca asked. Do we just pretend the last hour didn't happen? No, I said. We acknowledge it happened and we move forward differently. Or we don't move forward at all. That's up to you. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Marcus. I glanced at the screen. I need to take this. It's about the Westbrook property. Of course, Victoria said quickly. We should probably go anyway. Sarah will send you the confirmation email with all the details, I told her. And Victoria, I'm happy for you. I really am. You're going to have a beautiful wedding. She smiled, tentative and genuine. Thank you. I stepped away to answer the phone, leaving my family to process everything in the venue I owned, the venue Victoria had told me I'd never be good enough to enter. Marcus, what's up? The Westbrook deal is getting media attention, he said. Architectural Digest wants to do a feature on the renovation plans. And there's a reporter from Forbes calling about, get this, they want to interview you for their Real Estate Moguls Under 40 piece. I glanced back at my family. They were clustered together, talking in low voices. Victoria caught my eye and waved, a small, uncertain gesture. Tell Forbes yes, I said. But low-key. I don't need a cover or anything dramatic. Marcus laughed. Emma, you just closed an $11.8 million deal at 29 years old. You own $47 million in property. Low-key might not be an option anymore. Then we'll make it an option, I replied. That's what we do. We make impossible things possible. That's what I love about you, boss. Okay, I'll set it up. Conservative approach, focus on the business model, downplay the personal wealth angle. Perfect. I ended the call and turned back to find Sarah waiting politely nearby. Your family is heading out, she said. But Miss Victoria wanted me to tell you she'll call you later. She seemed emotional. That's one word for it, I said. Sarah hesitated. For what it's worth, I think you handled that really well. It can't have been easy. It wasn't. But it needed to happen. I looked around the venue, at the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the soaring ceilings that had represented impossible elegance when I was a child. Thank you for being professional through all that. That's literally my job, she said with a smile. Though I have to admit, this was the most dramatic booking I've ever processed. Let's hope it's the last, I replied. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Victoria. I really am sorry. Thank you for not canceling my booking. And congratulations on everything you've built. I should have said that years ago. I typed back, better late than never. See you at dinner Sunday? Her response came immediately. Yes. Emma? I'll make sure everyone knows the venue is yours. You deserve that credit. I smiled and pocketed my phone. Outside, through the venue's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the rose garden where Victoria would say her vows in 6 months. The white arbor she'd requested was already in place, elegant and timeless. It was a good venue. A beautiful property. One of my favorites in the portfolio. And now, finally, my family knew I owned it. Sarah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Miss Blackwood? I hate to ask, but we have another site visit scheduled in 15 minutes. A couple looking at the venue for their anniversary party. Of course, I said. I'll get out of your way. Actually, Sarah said carefully, they specifically requested to meet the owner if possible. They're considering a significant event, their company's 50th anniversary gala. Could be a very lucrative booking. I checked my watch. I had a conference call at 4, but that gave me an hour. Set it up, I said. I'll stay for the meeting. Thank you, Miss Blackwood. Sarah, I said as she turned to go, call me Emma. Miss Blackwood makes me feel like my mother. He grinned. Will do, Emma. I settled into one of the venue's elegant chairs to wait, pulling out my phone to review the Westbrook renovation proposals Marcus had sent over. Numbers and floor plans filled the screen. The practical details of building something real, something lasting. My phone buzzed with a call. Mom's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring through to voicemail. Some conversations needed time. Some revelations needed space to breathe. For now, I had a business to run, a property to show, and a future to build. One that had nothing to do with my family's expectations and everything to do with my own quiet competence. The same competence they'd spent 29 years underestimating. Their mistake, not mine. And now finally they knew it.